Welcome back to my channel Nirmalendu. Please like, share and subscribe my channel by clicking on the bell icon. Thank you. In this lesson, we are going to learn about Leela's Friend, the famous short story by R.K.Narayan. Now students, let us first take a look at who R.K.Narayan was, his short biography. Born on 10 October 1906 in Madras, the present-day Chennai, and died on 13 May 2001, Rasipuram Krishnaswamy Iyer Narayan Swamy, the full name R.K. Narayan in short, was a famous short story writer, a novelist and a man of letters, we can say. His famous works include Malgudi Days and the autobiographical trilogy Swamy and Friends, The Bachelor of Arts, The English Teacher, and ours, Leela's Friend, was first included in 1943, remember, in Malgudi Days, the best ever short story written by R.K. Narayan. In his professional career, he was awarded with so many prizes of both national and international repute. A few examples may be mentioned over here. The Sahitya Academy Award in 1994 for his best ever novel, The Guide. Then mention may be made of the A.C. Benson Medal, the Padma Vibhushan, and perhaps the most prestigious of all, Padma Bhushan. Narayan, in his later days, was also nominated to Rajya Sabha, the Indian Parliament, and he was nominated as a member of Rajya Sabha in the later half of his career, professional career. He was very famous and noted for his social context and everyday life of his characters. His works were set, remember, in the fictional South Indian town of Malgudi. Unlike the predecessors and other short story writers, R.K. Narayan, Rasipuram Krishnaswamy Iyer Narayan Swamy in full, was very special in his unique objectivity, remember, and detachment as a narrator. Everything he spoke about the society, but he was completely detached. So this was his speciality. Our story, Leela's Friend, is a very simple story of a labor having friends in this hostile world. The story is a simple anecdote of a sweet, naughty relationship, remember, between the servant on the one hand and the master's little girl. Leela, her name. The girl issues an executive voice of innocence for forbidding discrimination on her servant mate. Now, the entire story is a study in conflicting worlds of grown-ups and children, crime and punishment. The entire story minutely depicts us, remember, a typical children's world with their fantasies and myth. So that is the crux of this story. There are four characters that we come across. One is, of course, Leela, the sweet little 5-year-old daughter of Mr. Sivasankar, the little girl child, having the power over her parents in the family. Then we have Siddha, having the dominant role in the entire short story. Siddha is thoroughly uneducated young man, and he is very poor. He is almost at the bottom of the caste system in the society, and he does whatever he is told or he is asked for. That is what Siddha is present here in this short story. Then we have Mr. Sivasankar, the head of the family, a rich man who is at the top of the caste system in the society. The last but not the least of all the four characters is Mrs. Sivasankar, one who executed all her household duties and looked after Leela, her daughter. So she was the mother of this little girl, Leela. So these are the four characters that we come across while going through the lines of the story. Let us have a quick look at the story. Now, if we go through the lines, we will see that the story begins. The story begins with Siddha being employed by Mr. Sivasankar to be a servant in their house. Now, they were desperately looking for a servant just to meet up their household duties and responsibilities. And Siddha was also jobless at that time. He was also desperate to have any kind of job, and ultimately he impressed every member of the family. They were a bit confused. At the initial stage, we find that both Mr. and Mrs. Sivasankar were a bit confused about the job of Siddha at their home. But the Sivasankar's 5-year-old daughter Leela, she nodded, she approved Siddha's appointment, and her parents also agreed with her, and Siddha got the job. Now Leela likes Siddha very much. Immediately after appointment, she gets her new playmate, her new friend, and ultimately he became the intimate friend of this particular little child, 5-year-old daughter of Mr. Sivasankar. He is expected to play with Leela, and this man, this poor uneducated fellow, one who was previously engaged in a doctor's house in a bungalow, nearby bungalow, now being appointed here in Leela's house, is very good and patient playfellow with a vivid imagination, and Leela is very taken with him. As the story proceeds, as the story advances, we come to know that every time Leela plays with him, and he also accompanies her every time. So they become intimate in course of time. They play the games with the moon and the ball, and she also plays at teaching him. Now here she finds a good platform for her as a teacher. She plays the role of a teacher. She has got the student Siddha to teach him a lot. One day, the days go on. One day, after Siddha and Leela return home after going to a shop to buy some sugar, Mrs. Sivasankar notices that the gold chain, the necklace of her daughter Leela, is missing. She suspects Siddha of stealing the gold chain, asks him about the chain. That night the boy, Siddha, the young boy, runs away, and this made the entire family very much suspicious of his character as a thief. That night, after he had run away, the Sivasankars lodged a complaint with the police. Now, stories about Siddha's villainy gradually became wilder and wilder, and finally the police arrested Siddha, who denied that he had taken the chain. Leela, in this point, her statement became very noticeable and very important. She was very upset when Siddha was taken away, and at the end of the story, Mrs. Sivasankar found the chain in a tamarind pot, but both she and Mr. Sivasankar were still convinced that Siddha was a born criminal, as they found the police records were against Siddha. He had done several such criminal activities in his past life, so they suspected that Siddha was not a man of good moral character, but a criminal inborn, even after finding out their lost gold chain. The themes in this story are betrayal of trust, friendship between children from different social classes, prejudice, and poverty and exploitation. So, the entire story R.K.Narayan's story, Leela's friend narrates, thus, a poverty-stricken, unfortunate, remember, boy's friendship with a 5-year-old girl belonging to a higher social caste. The divine order of innocence on the one hand that drags us in our childhood spontaneously surpasses the difference that lies between these two children. Their friendship, at the backdrop of the adult's complicated world of cunning, exploitation and selfishness, comprises thus the theme of the entire story. So, the title, Leela's Friend by R.K.Narayan, thus competently hints at this thematic content. Now, in this short story, remember, we have these characters and they ultimately show us minutely, depict us minutely, the typical children's world with their fantasies and myth on the one hand, and on the other, the exploitation on the downtrodden, the conflicting world of grown-ups and children, and crime and punishment, thus making the title apt and justified thoroughly. So this is the entire story. Hopefully you have understood the entire story in detail. In my next video, we will come across several MCQs, SAQs and long answer type questions from this space. Follow my next video for the question answers. Thank you.